Welcome to Networking RX, a podcast devoted to helping business professionals like you enhance your networking skills in order to become more proficient giving and receiving quality business referrals and improving the overall quality of your life and the lives of those around you. The Networking RX podcast is a production of AmSpirit Business Connections, an organization whose mission is to empower business success through networking.
Welcome to the Networking RX podcast. I'm your host, Frank Agan, founder and president of AmSpirit Business Connections. Today we have another great guest. As our ongoing subscribers know, often on this podcast, I'll be sharing ideas, insights, best practices for building better professional relationships and excelling at business networking. Occasionally, however, I'll be interviewing subject matter experts. These are authors, speakers, thought leaders, social scientists, and get them on here to share their knowledge and help us build better relationships. Today is a total treat. I have Jill Lublin on here. Jill is an international speaker on topics of radical influence, publicity, networking, kindness, and referrals. And she's the author of 4 best-selling books, including Get Noticed, Get Referrals. She's the co-author of Guerrilla Publicity and Networking Magic. Just a shout out. She was so gracious as to include a description or a profile of AmSpirit Business Connections and Networking Magic. If you get a chance, go buy it. I assume she's still getting royalties. But her latest book, Profit of Kindness, went number 1 in 4 categories. She is a master strategist on how to position your business for more profitability and more visibility in the marketplace. She's the CEO of a strategic consulting firm and has over 25 years experience working with over 100,000 people plus national and international media. Jill teaches a virtual publicity crash course and consults and speaks all over the world. She shared the stage with such luminaries as Tony Robbins, and she also helps authors to create book deals with major publishers and agents, as well as obtain foreign rights deals. Jill, thank you for your time. Welcome to the program.
It's a delight to be here, Frank. Thank you.
Relationships. You're like a master of relationships. Like I said, long before I ever wrote a book, I had your book, Networking Magic, and it's still the Bible. There's sections in here on networking do's and don'ts, which I think is like 4 or 5 pages of gold, really, because a lot of people out there they do it wrong. But I do want to kind of pick your brain on relationships and how, you've worked with 100,000 people. That's amazing. How you got started, when you first realized, hey, this whole networking thing, because they don't teach you it in school.
No, they don't teach you at school. And I really think they ought to put this in the curriculum, frankly, because the reality of life is that it's really based on relationships. I'm going to tell you, I got my first book written, Guerrilla Publicity, because I knew an agent who actually had seen me speak on publicity, which is my main, thing that I do for people. And, he saw me speak. Next thing you know, I find out he's connected with J. Conrad Levinson, the grandfather, the master of guerrilla marketing, right? So guess what? Guerrilla Publicity was born. That was because of relationships. And because we did well with the book, you're holding in your hand the second book, Networking Magic, right? And that's the power of, I think, really getting to know people, trusting people, because the truth is we do business with people we like, know, and trust. I think relationships are everything. And I don't know that I, knew this at first. I just think, honestly, it's more natural for me. It's who I am. I'm a natural connector. But what I also know is there are people who aren't, or who are more introverted and maybe even a little afraid, to reach out to people, or who think social media is the way that they always connect, So one of the things I'm really big on is having people have a great message and feel confident, know what to say when they're networking. All of that is key to success too. But you start wherever you start. The point is, start getting outside and build when I say outside, meaning outside of your own circle, and build a bigger circle for yourself, because that's where spheres of influence lie.
Yeah, I just a quick background on myself. I indicated a little before we hit record. I have a law degree. I have an MBA. I went into a big corporate professional services firm, and I just assumed do well in school, lots of credentials, and life will take care of you. And nothing could be further from the truth. And I think there's a lot of people out there. Why do you think people struggle with relationships? I mean, because we're humans. We have relationships. We get married. We, however that looks, people get married. We date people. We're built to have relationships. We're not built to be solitary individuals. But somehow when business comes into play, we're all thumbs.
Yeah, it's interesting because business is relationship. Yeah, you're doing business. You're doing whatever you do. You were an attorney, right? I'm doing public relations consulting. Guess what? It's still relationships. People connect to you because of it or don't connect to you because of who you are. I do think it's important to be congruent with who you are in life, and in other words, who you are in business needs to also be who you are in life. And listen, as a PR person, I can tell you, sometimes I've seen incongruence. It's not pretty. Meaning, if I represent, let's say, a speaker or teacher or somebody who's on stage, so to speak, one way and not the same off, it's disconcerting. And I think in today's world, particularly, one needs to be authentic, including saying, whatever it is you need to say, that you can be vulnerable and that's okay now.
How do you, when you come across people who are, we'll call, as you call it, incongruent, how do you coach them through that? Because I recorded a podcast earlier, and that topic came up that, you look at somebody's LinkedIn profile, which is something that wasn't there when you got started in business, and you see one thing and then you hear something totally different.
Well, okay. So, that's obviously having to do, listen, we're all not perfect, right? Some people will have better experiences with whoever than others. Here's what I've learned in life. Don't judge anyone, give them a chance, right?
Yeah.
In other words, but yes, am I going to do my research, make sure their reputation is good? I mean, you should always do your due diligence with anybody you work with. And sometimes you just got to go with your gut. Listen, I've chosen people that other people don't like to work with or think something of or have judgments, whatever. And I've had great experiences. And vice versa, where somebody said great things and I didn't have as good of experience. So what I've learned is have my own experience, and then from there I can make decisions, good decisions. But realistically, I think it's also important to do that due diligence. Like if there's a lot of bad comments, probably don't work with them. If they're on, those scam sites, probably don't work. In fact, definitely don't work with them, right? And I think it's happened to the best of us. It's happened to me. It's happened to all of us where we got into a business relationship with people. And, I gave a lot of money and it didn't turn out well. So that happens. And I consider it the school of life, the school of business. It's part of getting your master's in business. There are things that go better than others.
Yeah. Well, as you kind of alluded to, sometimes it works in reverse. I have found that there have been people, and I'm sure I would love for you to share a story where it's like kind of a ho-hum thing. Well, I'll give you a great example. The woman I just interviewed, she is the marketing business development person for Advanaclean in 3 counties in Minnesota. Somebody introduced me to her. I'm like, okay, I don't know about Paula. I don't know anything about her, but why am I having this conversation? What a wonderful person. She blew me away, just the way she networks and what I was able to learn. And it's kind of a great story.
Yes. There are those sleepers, I'll call them, right? Where it's like, wow, that came out of nowhere. So, here's the thing. Listen, I like to call it a meaningful conversation every single day. What does that mean? There's somebody I'm meeting through one of my networking organizations that I'm getting to know deeper. There's somebody I'm talking to. And by the way, they're 20 minutes. They're not long conversations. I actually don't think your first conversation with, your first touch points with people need to be long, and especially in today's busy time. So I like keeping things, actually on my calendar, it says 15-minute connection call. Now I give it 20,
Sure.
and that's fine. But I think that's a lot for getting to know somebody a little bit, right? It's a little bit, it's not deep. But here's the thing, that then the question is, what are you doing with these conversations? Are they meaningful? So I will always ask, how can I help you? What can I do for you? And guess what? They'll always ask, how can I help you? What can I do for you? Who do you know? And I have gotten the most amazing interviews, speaking engagements, clients. One woman I met, she brought 3 people to my virtual publicity course recently. I'm like, that was a 15-minute conversation.
Yeah.
So I think part of your day, and for me, it's literally, I have usually at least one, but I go for 3. I'm just saying 3,
Yep.
up to 3 meaningful conversations a day, which is pretty easy to do. That's a 60-minute window block. Okay. And if you don't have time to do 60 minutes of, we'll call it connecting every day, that's what I like to think of it, by the way, not networking. I think of it as connecting. That might help some people if you get a little afraid or a little shy. And by the way, they're not all on Zoom. Sometimes we just go old school and pick up the phone, which is great. So you decide what's comfortable for you. I know some people are more comfortable on camera than others. So if you're not that comfortable on camera, just say, hey, can we do phone?
Right.
That's perfect.
No, I think that's great advice. A meaningful conversation every day. And I think that's, like you say, something very easy to execute on. What does follow-up look like? I mean, are you following up with all those people, or do people kind of weed themselves out or self-select?
Some weed themselves out. Some become clients. Some become referral partners. Some become that I refer, them business. Like I've got somebody, we had a 15-minute connect call. She's great at social media. I probably referred her at least 4 clients last week, so that's wonderful. I think it shows itself. If you have multiple more calls, it might be something else. But what I've realized is, for me, time is money and it's sensitive. And I think for all of us, I'm also sensitive to other people's time because busy people are busy, right? So I think it's really good to be respectful of people's time. Get clear on what the boundaries are. When people say connection call 45 minutes on their calendar, you know what I say? I'm so excited to connect. My max is 30 minutes, like that, right?
Yeah.
And you have to do what's comfortable for you and set the boundaries that are right for you. Some people like talking on and on. I'm just not that type. And I like to do business with people who are fast and focused and connected. And guess what? Most busy people are going to be like that. Now, you might be in a certain kind of business where it is more about talking, connecting, and deeper relationships, in which case you will have longer periods of time that you get to connect with people. It depends what business you're in. And I think all of it's good and all of it works. You just have to get clear, what are your boundaries?
Interesting. Yeah, I had a call a couple of weeks ago with a gentleman who he was of the mind that first call needed to be an hour, which is, like you say, if that's his cup of tea, that's his cup of tea. But interesting.
And let me just ask you the truth. In that hour, did you really go over so many things that it needed an hour?
Probably not. I read an article in Psychology Today talking about essentially small talk, and the author, who was a university professor, basically made the point that, if the relationship's going to go somewhere, then it's okay to save some things for the next conversation, whether it's in person over Zoom, right? If it's not going to go anywhere, then be done with it as soon as possible, right? As soon as the person who's kind of right in on you, sales pitch, it's probably not going anywhere, at least until they can get themselves righted. You best to be done with it as soon as you can. So I thought that was interesting.
Listen, I mean, here's the thing. The question is, what is it that you're going to create in the conversation? I think it's good to ask that. I always ask, so tell me about yourself. They ask, tell me about yourself. We see if it's a right fit. If it's a right fit, great. then it becomes the next thing. We may set a second conversation. We may set a referral arrangement. We may set listen, I'll think of you when I need this, right? But at least they're in my circle now. There's no way I could probably keep up with all of them again, but here's the thing, touch points are important. And then I'm usually in networking meetings with these people, so they see my face again. Oh yeah, that's Jill. I had a conversation with her last Friday. She helps people with their publicity. Okay, right. And so when they're thinking about that, then they can refer people who might need it over to me. But I think it's about continual touch points.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, it's all relationships, as you indicated in pretty much your opening statement. Let's shift gears here real quickly. You've got another book coming out, The Profit of Kindness, and we're not going to talk about that, but I'm going to tease about it because on December 31st, Jill's coming back and we're going to talk about that, and she's got something coming up for 2022. But I do want to touch on your publicity crash course and kind of share a little about that and how people can learn more.
Absolutely. I do a virtual publicity crash course, like especially, since COVID, everything went virtual. It's live, it's interactive with me on Zoom, super easy. And we actually get 3 documents done that the press needs, which is really important. And I give people systems and blueprints for every 30, 60, and 90-day publicity plan. So it's really about solid PR principles that can be applied right away. And check it out. You can go to publicitycrashcourse.com and take a look at that. And also we have a special code there that gets you a super duper pandemic recovery price, I like to call it. So that should be very helpful.
Is there a code? I'll put that link in the show notes. Is there a code for that?
You. Yes, it is. The code is Stay Visible, all lowercase and case sensitive. Because you got to stay visible, my friends. That's a key to success.
All right, I will get that into the show notes. Well, this has been absolutely wonderful. For those who are listening in, the December 31st. We're going to drop another episode with Jill talking about the profit of kindness and things that she's got going around kindness for 2022. So Jill, thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us on the Networking RX podcast. Please put what you've learned into action today and let us know if you have questions, comments, or ideas for future topics. You can email them to us at podcast@amspirit.com. That's AMSPIRIT.com. Finally, so you never miss an episode, be sure to subscribe to the Networking RX podcast through iTunes, Overcast, or however you receive your podcasts. Now get out and network with someone.
The Networking RX podcast is the copyright production of AmSpirit Business Connection. All rights reserved.